Alright, so we have a non-typical car here in the shop, and I thought it would be good to tell you guys all about it and why it is here. So it's a Honda EG. We usually don't ever work on front wheel drive cars just because something we don't do, I guess. We're more into drift cars. So it has a J series 3.2 liter V6, not your typical 4-cylinder in a Honda. It looks like this, it literally looks like a big block V8 when it's in here. It's really cool. And then he's got this Holley EFI intake manifold, which looks like some of the drift cars out there that have the LS's in there. So it's pretty cool already. And then it's got a turbo. BorgWarner EFR 9180. That's the biggest EFR series turbo. So this thing's gonna make upwards of 850, might make even 1,000 horsepower, but we don't know the exact numbers yet, but it's gonna make some power. It's got a big giant treadstone intercooler that we made. We bought the core, made the intakes, and mounted it up in here. So on one of the past videos, I was talking about quarter turn fasteners, and you guys, not everyone, but I think I had 2 comments asking about it. So this car utilizes a lot of quarter turn fasteners, and then I'm gonna tell you a little bit about them. So we're gonna get this front bumper off and show you the skeleton underneath there. So quarter turn fastener most of the time utilizes a flathead, and then we'll go back in behind here and look at it. So quarter turn fastener consists of the front side that you could see that'll, you know, hold on a fiberglass panel or maybe sheet metal panel, or maybe Lexan window. Then it has the tab that gets welded on or riveted on to the other surface, or if you don't need a tab, if it's sheet metal against sheet metal, you can just punch a hole through it, but then you need this spring, and watch as you turn it a quarter turn, it grabs on like so. So that's a quarter turn fastener. They're lightweight, they come in different sizes and depths, and they allow you to do quick release body panel removal like that. Here's a treadstone intercooler, good for 980 horsepower. And then we made the intercooler piping. We made this little chin bar and this skeleton structure in here to hold his bumper in place, because he's hoping to go upwards of 180 miles an hour. And then there ended up that there was not enough room to make space for a radiator. So what did we do? We put the radiator in the back. Let's go take a look at that.
These
So
are quarter turn fasteners back here too.
There's a lot of ducting, a lot of aluminum back here. But once again, we're using the quarter turn fasteners, which there's different companies. You might know them as Zeus fasteners. That's a company though, or like Jags makes it, Summit makes their own. There's a bunch of companies that make quarter turn fasteners. So here's the radiator. It's a dual pass AFCO with a dual Durali fan shroud. For all we know, this might be the very first Honda to ever have a rear mount radiator. And we firewalled everything off, just like we do on the FD cars or the Pro-Am spec drift cars, so that there's nothing that could ever get to the driver coolant wise when the car's hot up to temp. It's not gonna ever spray the driver. This one only has 3750 CFM because the fans are a little bit smaller, but overall that's way more cooling than Hondas normally have, even with the J series 3.2 liter. And I believe he's gonna bore that one out and stroke it a little bit, so it's probably gonna be more like a 3.5 liter when it's all done. But this will be perfectly sufficient for that. It's gonna pick air up off the ground and pull it this way. These are pulling fans, so I'll pull it this way. It's going to hit like the firewall or the shroud, whatever you want to call it here, ducting. It's going to hit that and then have to make its way down around it and almost sometimes suck the air back in, except you're moving forward, so it's probably not the same air, but this is the only way we could do it without cutting up the back of his car, and he didn't want us to cut holes in this rear. It is not traditional how we would duct the air out the back, but this is gonna work because it's like overkill plus overkill, and then you have all the coolant lines. He's gonna run dual -16 lines to and from the motor, so you have all that extra coolant that you wouldn't normally have. Even if the radiator is like getting hot back here a little bit, it has enough time, everything's gonna be cold. Way better than if you had a radiator sitting on the header right here. There's just no room. You would have either had to have a tiny little intercooler or air to water intercooler on the side, but then you're using air to water with not enough radiator. It was gonna be not enough cooling, and so he let us do this, and it's gonna turn out great and work great. So then we did the dual exit out of the hood. Here, let me close the hood a little bit. Holes here, we still gotta clearance it more for the rest of the throttle body, a little bit more for the turbo, but just clean exit on the exhaust and one of the dump tubes. And then the other dump tube is just gonna head out and go down under the car there, just right here. But moving forward on the coolant system, here's his expansion tank. It's gonna be the highest point of the motor here, and it's gonna feed over there. That's like acts as a swirl pod expansion tank to get rid of the bubbles. That's the highest point, so that the motor's lower, all the air bubbles and all the pressure goes out of the motor, and like it's basically circulating over there. And then he's gonna have to, do a very efficient bleed setup when he does the initial adding of coolant, because everything's so far back here. But luckily this radiator has a bleed cap on it, so we'll be good for that. I don't know, this is a pretty exciting Honda if you really think about it. We also did the cage in it. He's gonna do drag racing primarily, some I guess street driving. That's up to him. We probably wouldn't suggest to do that with such a car, but that's up to him. We're not into Hondas, but he kind of made us into Hondas. This is David Green's car. This is Joe. And Joe used to be in the military. You guys already know Joe, but Joe's in the military. He's friends with David Green, and David kept asking Joe, hey, you guys gotta build my Honda. You gotta build my Honda. And I'm like, we don't work on Hondas, Joe. We don't do front wheel drive cars. We do like grip cars, drift cars, and street cars that aren't Hondas. But he convinced us to work on it, and this is a really cool Honda, and we got to do a lot of cool stuff to it. So hopefully you like David Green's Honda. Tell us what you think. Hopefully you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. All right, guys.